So now I'm going to tell you a couple of things which you should remember for future usage, which I have not yet told you. Even when in the last session I told you for the first time how to create a do file, I did not want to give you extra information and create an information overload. But now, since today you are 7 days more experienced compared to last week, in your every do file there should be some common header portion. So no matter whether you are creating a do file from um, in this particular fashion, or you are opening your do file editor and typing things there, in whatever way you are doing, there should be a few lines at the top of each of your do file, which will be common always across all your do files. And what are those? The first line, I'm typing this because it will just take a lot of time and some of them cannot even be done from the menu. So I'm just typing them. You guys also type them. In the command editor, first thing that you should type immediately after opening the command log is type clear all. This basically clears the memory of Stata. So clear all. So this will be the first command that will be echoed or copied into this do file or into this command log file which you have just opened. So first is clear all. Second will be capture log close. So log close you already have seen. In the last session, you saw that log close closes any open log file. However, in the last session, I told you to put that at the end of the do file. We will do that definitely, but along with that, you should also keep this command at the very top of the do file. The reason is that many times we make mistakes in our do files. And if there is a mistake in our do file and we try to run that do file, Stata stops there. Stata stops after passing or giving us an error message that this has gone wrong, therefore I cannot progress any further. I'm stopping here. Correct yourself. Well, Stata does not tell you to correct yourself. That's something I'm telling you. But the idea is that. Now, the issue is that somehow, by default, Stata does not close the open log file. The do file execution is stopped, but the log file is remained open because the log close command is actually at the bottom of your do file. Stata has not been able to go up to that line, so Stata has not closed the log file. Now, after correcting the mistake in your do file, when you try to run it again, rerun it, at the top of the do file, you will have the log opening command. So Stata tries to open a log file by the same name. And now Stata faces a mistake again, that the same log file is already open. You are trying to open the same log file again. So again, you will get an error message. Therefore, if your second line is this capture log close, what happens is, if there is any log file open, Stata closes it. So log close closes any log file. But what does this capture do, and what is it? Now today, after I have taught you, or after I have discussed how to create this command log file, I shall get into discussing the syntax of the Stata command. There I shall discuss something called a prefix. So capture is a prefix which comes before a command. Now what capture does is, the issue is, if there is no log file open, rather I should go the other way. If there is a log file open already, then log close closes that log file. But if there is no log file open, then just Giving the command log close, you will encounter an error message that there is no log file open, therefore I cannot do anything. What capture does is, if a log file is open, Stata closes it. If there is no log file open, Stata doesn't do anything. Stata goes to the next line. So that is the purpose of this capture command. So even if Stata does not encounter a log file, it will not issue an error message and just go to the next line. So that is the purpose of capture. Now, maybe this small discussion on capture is not sufficient for you. So later on, after the end of the session, go to, just hold on, this irritating top portion of the Zoom window. I don't know why it is not going away. Anybody knows how to make it go away? I have no idea. We'll just bring it at the bottom, nothing else. Anyway, what you need to do is just go to help. In help, you have PDF documentation. I have already shown you. So in PDF documentation, I think capture should be, anyway, it will be, go to this prefix, discussion of prefixes should be, yeah, it should be user's guide. So click on the user's guide, and within user's guide, there is a chapter 11, language syntax. If you go there, you will find the discussion that I'm going to actually do today after this initial part. And there you will find the prefix commands. So check there, and you will find the list of prefixes. Clicking on each of them, you can find what they do. And towards the bottom, you have capture. And you can follow that link, because each of these blue words are actually hyperlinks. So if you click on them, it will take you to that particular entry, and then you can read about capture. All right. So do that if the discussion on capture is not clear. The basic idea is capture simply asks data, okay, if you can do it, do it. If you cannot do it, don't stop, carry on. So anyway, coming back to what we were discussing. The second line that we need to put into our do file is capture log close. So enter. Now that next line is opening that log file that we need to open. So log using, I told you my convention of naming the log file. The name of the do file is session 220125. Therefore, the corresponding log file will be underscore log.txt. Again with a comma and replace. So log using session 220125 underscore log.txt, comma, replace. Again, run it. So this log file now gets opened. Now, after this, there should be two more lines that is slightly difficult to explain, But anyway, let me try. The next line that you should type is actually version. Simply the word version. What it does is it prints in the results which particular Stata version you are running. So for example, I am running right now, or actually all of us are running Stata SC17. So that will be printed. So the next line is simply version. And the next line is version. Now comes your own version, 17.0. Now what it does is the difference between these two lines is simply typing version returns the result that whatever the version of this data is, in whichever data you are going to run this do file. But the next line, version 17.0, that actually specifies for which particular data version this do file was created. Now, when we all have Stata 17 and we are creating the do file in Stata 17, we are running it in Stata 17, it probably won't matter much. But you are not learning Stata just for running it in Stata 17. There will be a time when you will create a do file in Stata 17, but you will see that 1 or 2 years down the line, when then you are working with Stata 18 or Stata 19, that do file that you created is still useful for some purpose. So if you have that word versions or that command line version 17, and you try to run it in Stata 18, Stata 18 will know that everything that goes after this pertains to Stata 17. And Stata is backward compatible, or rather, I get confused whether it is backward compatible or forward compatible. So the main idea is that older Stata commands can be run in new Stata, but newer Stata commands may not work in older Stata. So if you have created a Stata do file in Stata 17, you can run it in Stata 18. And it will, if you specify that it was created for this particular version, Stata 18 will make sure that your results are consistent between the time when you ran it in Stata 17 and the time when you are running it in Stata 18. Therefore, although right now it might not make much sense, when you get a little bit more experience to Stata, you will see that these two lines are very important. So for now, just learn to keep them in your at the top of your do file or command log file. So enter. Now let's just demarcate that this is the end of the top common portion of our command log file. How do we do that? Simple. Remember, I told you asterisk is used to start a comment in Stata. Therefore, we can use asterisk as much as we want. So type a lot of asterisks and press enter. A line of asterisks will come. And the same line will appear in your do file or command log file as well. So immediately it will be clear to you or anyone reading the do file that anything above it is the common top portion. Now, for the time being, typing stops here. Now we go back to the menu system. We work through the menu. So before I go to the menu system, let me just stop here for a minute or so and see if there is any question. So remember, we have not yet completely finished the do file or command log file. We have only finished creating its top common portion. So go ahead. Either catch up with me, or if you have any question, type it in the chat box. Now, these are the 5 command lines that should be at the top of your CMD log file or do file. Clear all, capture log close, log using log file name and then comma replace, version 17.0. Now, version 17.0 will change depending on in which Stata you are currently creating this do file. If any of you are working with, let's say, Stata 14 or 15 or 16, instead of typing version 17.0, type Stata 14 or Stata 16. All right. Looks like there is no question till now. That's very good. Let's just continue then. Now let's open a file. So as usual, go ahead, open a data file, any of the data files that I have given you. Do some small statistical stuff, create a graph, and then let's just do that. So I'm going to open the data file. Let's say the same wage one data. So I'm opening that data file. Then I want to keep some vertical space, empty space in the do file between where I open the data and where I do the work. So I'm going to press some enters. And as you can see in the results window, some empty space comes. That will be there in the do file as well, or command log file as well. Now I want to write a comment. In the previous session, I showed you how to add comments after doing everything. Today, let's see how to add the comment here while while doing the analysis. So the next thing that I'm going to do is see what variables are there in the data set. So let's just add a comment to that effect. So comments start with asterisk. So type an asterisk and then type the comment to see what variables are there. And then enter. And as you can see, Stata did not try to execute it. Stata simply printed that line. Now go to data, describe data in memory and file. We know that is how we execute the describe command. Press OK. And the output has gone up, so I need to scroll down a little. So the describe output has come. We can see what variables are there, which are numeric variables, which are string variables, and all that, and what they mean. So we can check it from here as usual. Then couple of empty spaces. And then let's say I want to calculate the summary statistics between some variables. So descriptive statistics of wage edu experience. Again, this is a comment, So I'm starting it with an asterisk. Press enter. That comment goes up there. Now let's go to statistics, summary tables and tests, summary and descriptive statistics, summary statistics, and bring the variables wage, educ, and experience there. Press OK. The summary statistics comes up in the results window. Now you get the idea, right? That this way you can do any number of analysis, any number of commands. You can add any comment there. So let me just add a completely useless comment. This is a completely useless comment. This will also be added to the do file. Now, once you have done everything that you wanted to do in this session, again, type a lot of asterisks, which will create a line again. And then we have to close the log file, which we do how? File, log, close. So the log file gets closed. After that, close the command log file. So always remember to open the command log file before you open the log file, and close the command log file after you close the log file. So the last thing that you need to do is cmd log space close. Now, unfortunately, this cannot be done from the menu. You have to type it. So cmd log close. Press enter. Your everything has been done. Your status session is done. Now let's see what we just created, the do file that we just created. Let's check that. So let's go to the folder, the working folder. And our today's session is Stata 22. Yep, here is the one. So go ahead and go to that folder of yours and figure out which is the, if you followed my same naming convention, it will be session 220125 will be your command log or do file, and session 220125 underscore log.txt will be your log file. So these are simple text files. You can open them in Stata's do file editor, or you can simply open them in your text editor. That is what I'm going to do. I'm going to open it in my text editor. So as you can see, this is our do file that in the last session we created by copying everything from the history window. Today, we have created it while working. So I told you the first command that will be there in your do file will be that clear all command, and that is there. After that, the entire top portion, common top portion is there. And the rest I have already explained while creating this file. We pressed a couple of enters, therefore there is some vertical empty space between this use command and everything else. Remind yourself, in the last session I told you, with the use command you should put clear after a comma and delete the path of the file. Just keep the file name. Then see, everything is there. If you want to add more space, feel free to add more space anywhere to make it humanly readable. You just need to resave it. That's it, nothing else. And the last command in this file is log close. So now this will be a do file, and you can run it exactly the same way that we learned in the previous session. This is a self-contained do file or command log file, whichever name you use. And every time you run this session 220125 underscore log, this particular log file will be created. Every time Stata will load this wage one data file, do these two steps, calculate the summary statistics and describe all the variables that are there, and close the log file. So this is how we create a log file, create a command log file or do file while working in Stata. Now, if while working, if you gave a wrong command, definitely remember to come back to this do file and delete that command. You have to do those housekeeping things. So make it neat and clean, and you get a completely self-contained record of all the steps that you have taken in this session of Stata. So, any question about this particular way of creating a do file or command log file? Looks like there is one. What was the purpose of the last comment? Which one? This is a useless comment. That was just to show that you can add any comment, even if it is useless. Any other question, anyone? All right. Looks like there is no question. That's very good. So let's just move on and let's get into the discussion that will finish our these 4 sessions. So not only the other things that I just discussed at the beginning of the session today. Not only those, we have also over the last 3 days we have learned a sizable number of commands in Stata. The first thing that we learned was we did things using the menu system, but I showed you that the menu itself actually translates into the commands, and the word in the dialog box, the first word in the title bar of the dialog box, is actually the command that Stata uses to do those things. So the first thing that we did was the display command or the display dialog box. Then to change directory, we use the command cd, and then so on. We learned several. Uh, I think this list still misses some of them, but we have done these commands. Now, working through the menu, as I have been repeatedly telling you, is not our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is to learn these commands, at least uh, some handful of basic commands, and learn them such that we can type them later on, be it in the command editor window or be it in the do file. We want to ultimately type it. But to type it, we need to understand what is a command and how it is structured. And lies one of the beauties of Stata, because Stata's commands are, or rather I should say, Stata's commands follow a generic common structure. So once you understand that common structure, learning the commands become very easy. So let's see, that is the thing that we will learn today. So first of all, what are the commands? The commands are instructions that we give Stata to do something. What type of instructions? Either we can ask Stata to do something on itself or about itself, or on a variable or some of its properties, or on a file. So these are the 3 general types of Stata commands that we have. We can ask Stata to do something about itself. For example, we might ask Stata to open a particular window or close itself, or change some particular setting. So those are the commands that will be doing something with Stata itself. Or we can do something about a variable that we already have in the memory of Stata. We can create a new variable from an existing variable. We can delete a variable. We can calculate something about a variable. We can create a graph with a variable or 2 variables. Or we can do something with another external file. For example, we can create a log file. We can create a do file. We can create a command log file. We can load a file, load a data file, or we can save a data file. So all these things. So there are basically 3 types of commands in Stata. More or less, as far as I can understand or I can think of, there is no other type of command. These 3 types of commands. And what are these commands? These commands are basically English sentences, but not exactly English sentences. English sentences where mostly the prepositions and articles have been deleted. So only generally the noun, subject, object, and verbs are there, but prepositions and articles have all been deleted. And the vocabulary of Stata, that is the words that Stata use, are sometimes specialized. For example, instead of saying open a data file, we will delete that A because that is an article that is deleted. We will simply say use that particular file. So instead of saying open, a specialized word use is used, and then we name the file. So this way, you will see gradually that Stata commands are simply English sentences. If you can just mentally add the prepositions and articles, they become complete sentences. It's just that in the Stata commands, those articles and prepositions are not there. Other than that, the nouns and verbs are there. Because all these sentences are imperative sentences, right? Asking Stata to do something. And certain times, some special words are used. Such words sometimes may not be very commonplace in our day-to-day usage. So I have been kind of glorifying that common structure of Stata command, which is called the anatomy of the Stata syntax. And what is that anatomy? We'll come to this later. The generic Stata command syntax, which is common across all commands, is this. Now, it may not be that every command has each and every part of this, but there is nothing beyond these parts. There is no command in Stata which has anything beyond these parts. So generically, a Stata command can start with a prefix. You already saw today, right? Capture is a prefix. Then comes the actual command word. Then either you have to specify a variables list, which in short I'm calling var list. Actually, Stata uses this word as well, var list, to refer to variable list. Now remember, variable list can be just one variable or many variables. So don't think that it is only in the plural sense. Even in the singular sense, it is used. Either you specify a var list, that is variable list, or a file. Then you may have to specify a new var equal to some expression. Now remember, one thing that you need to remember, these two parts, that is var list or file name, and the next part, new var equal to x, these are mutually exclusive. So any Stata command which requires you to specify a var list will not let you specify this new var equal to s, and vice versa. So all Stata commands which require var list will never allow you to type or input new var equal to some expression. Similarly, any Stata command that lets you input this new var equal to expression part, they will not let you type var list. Then comes another part, which is using file name. After that, there may be a part which is a if logical condition. I will again explain each of these, not only generically, but also with some examples of Stata commands. Then there will be a part which specifies the range of observations on which you are asking Stata to do something. Then there is a part called weight, which only comes into picture when you work with survey data sets. Other than that, it is not useful. And finally, the last part, which is the option. So the option will always come after a comma. That's why I have put that comma in the same box as option. So whenever you need to input some options, you must type a comma. Remember, only once. You cannot type more than once the comma portion. And if you type the comma and then anything, Stata will always assume that whatever you are typing after that comma is an option to this particular command. Now, where do you get to know what options are available with the comma? You can know it either from the dialog box or by looking at the help file on any particular command. Now that help file may be the Stata live help file or the PDF manual. So if you go and look for any of those commands there, you will see the full list of options. So the basic generic common command syntax of Stata is prefix command var list, new var equal to expression, using file name, if logical condition, in range, wait, comma, option. And uh, we have used very few options here and there over the last 3.5 days. Let me just go back one slide, the slide that I skipped, and show you by specifying options what fantastic things we can achieve. Now with statistical commands, it is difficult for me to show you something and explain it unless and until you also know that particular statistical concept. Therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a graph because that is easier. Graphs are easier to understand, right? So on the left-hand side, this graph that you can see right now is a scatter plot. And we saw how to create a basic scatter plot on day 2. Remember, the command was two-way scatter and then the two variables. So within this wage 1 data set, if you create a scatter plot between wage and edu, this is the scatter plot that you will get without any option or anything. The basic command, two-way scatter wage edu. But using all the options that are there available with the scatter plot command, you can create this graph. It is the same graph as the left one based on the same data, just that the basic command is also the same, two-way scatter wage edu. Just that I have used a lot of options which are available with this particular command. And just take a minute and see the difference between the two. And try to have an idea that using the options, not only option, here actually I have used the if condition as well. So basically the left side is the bare bone command. The right hand side is when I try to use the other parts as well. Now this is I'm showing you in terms of just a graph. You should understand in when you are doing statistical analysis, such complications can be addressed using those parts as well, options and if condition, in range, and other things. So just have a look at it, then I will go forward. And let me just check whether there is any question or not. And you guys just look at these two beautiful graphs. Escape, yeah. Nope. So most likely you have already seen it. Some of you liked it, some of you did not. That's okay. Now I just gave you this generic structure of the command. Let me just explain each of these terms one by one a little. Then I will get into Couple of examples. So the main required thing, the only required thing is this command part. Without the command, nothing works. So this is the bare bone command. So for example, use, when you try to load a data set, use is the command. When you try to create summary statistics, the descriptive statistics, mean, standard deviation, minimum, maximum, summarize is that command. So that is the command portion. So that is the bare bone command. And everything else basically modifies that command in some way or the other. Now, before the command comes the prefix. I told you where to look for the prefix. In the command editor window, you can just type help prefix. That will also show you what are the prefixes available with this particular Stata version. Now, what does prefix do? It is a phrase, or what is a prefix? It is a phrase that changes the default behavior of the command. For example, log close, as I was talking to you earlier today. Log close closes a log file. But the default behavior is if there is no log file open, then Stata gives you an error message. But the prefix capture stops Stata from behaving that in that default manner. Even if there is no log file open, if you put that capture prefix in front of it, Stata will simply carry on. So these are the ways in which prefixes modify the default behavior of the command. Okay, let me just wait here. I was thinking there may be a question. There seems like one. Okay, there's a big question. Let me just read it. Hello, sir. Can you guide me about infix infile command? No, I cannot, simply because that's a big command. And I know what question you are asking. After that, I can see the word NSSO. You are trying to most likely read a NSSO file. That is not really the purpose of this particular session. And reading NSSO data file is a beast of its own. It will require a full 1 or 2 days. So I can't help you there. Okay, yeah, that I can do separate session. But first of all, I don't like that. So I'm closing this. Since there is no other question, I'm closing this chat box. Just one point, Neha, that is, I don't like that infix. Actually, not infix. It will be infile command, but infile was old command. Most likely, you are working with an old edition of Stata. Most likely, not Stata 17 or even Stata 15. Most likely. Not even
Yes,
Stata
sir.
4, not
Yes,
even
sir.
Stata.
It's Stata 14 it is.
It is probably not even Stata 14 because infile is actually an older command. Uh, no, in sheet has been taken away. Infile is still there. Yeah. First of all, infix I don't like. Infile I like only when I'm using with a dictionary file. So are you using a dictionary file to read that file?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do have a dictionary file.
So my
I
guess
am,
is somewhere there is a mistake. So we will discuss it
yes.
later on. I can't
Okay.
discuss it
Okay.
in this
Okay.
session because that will take a lot of time, as I
Yes,
told
sir.
you.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Send me an email. We can sit down sometime.
Sure, sir. Thank
Okay. So the thing that I was discussing. So first is command, then comes the prefix, then comes these three parts that I discussed earlier: the var list or file name, new var equal to expression, and using file name. Now, as I told you, var list file name and new var, these are mutually exclusive. Any command which allows you to type var list will not allow you to type new var equal to expression, and vice versa. Now, what do they do? If you have to specify the var list or file name as part of the command syntax, that means you are asking Stata to do something on this particular variable list or the file that you have specified. On the other hand, if you are specifying new var equal to some expression, then you are basically asking Stata to create a new variable. So new var is basically short of new variable, the name of the new variable. Create a new variable according to whatever mathematical or whatever expression you have specified. And this generally applies to only these two commands, not only, mainly three commands: generate, clone var, and egen, which are variable creation commands. And finally, if you are specifying using file name, that means you are asking Stata to work using some specified file. Now, the difference between the specifying it as file name or as earlier or using file name is that in the using file name, Stata will actually create, generally either create or use the file in a slightly different way compared to if you specify it in the previous manner. Now, discussing this, if I try to explain this, it will probably not make sense unless and until you yourself use these parts in some commands later on. So let me just keep the discussion up to this point for these parts. Later on, when I go into the examples, we will see it in a slightly better way. The next part that comes is the if logical condition. Now, what does the if logical condition do? If logical condition asks Stata to do whatever the command says, conditional on the values of some other variables. That is what the if logical condition do. Then comes the in range. What does the in range do? In range simply asks Stata to do something on some subset of observation. So you can say that, okay, do this for the first 20 observations, or first 2000 observations, or last 50 observations, or 80 observations in the middle. So if you can specify, or if you want to specify some contiguous observations, you can use the in range. The weight, after that comes the weight portion, but I told you that weight only comes if you are working with a survey data. For example, as Neha is working with NSSO data, NSSO is a survey data and NSSO has weight variables. So only in those cases you need the weight portion. So, and finally comes the option. So this again, there are lots of, generally with every command, there are lots of options available, but options are command specific. So the same of the options which are available with one command will generally not be available with another command. And they also modify the default behavior of commands. So this is the general or generic command syntax of Stata. There is no command in Stata which goes against this generic structure. All commands follow this structure. Of course, it's not necessary that all commands follow all parts of it or allow all parts of it, but there is no additional part that is admissible in any command. All right. Any question before I get into examples? So it looks like there is no question. That's very good. Let me then get into the example that I have in mind, or the examples that those are that I have in mind. First of all, since you guys are working with the menu system till now, we have not got into typing yet. So let me address all these parts using a specific commands dialog box. So this is the tabulate dialog box for the tabulate command. So if you try to create a frequency distribution, we saw that we can use this particular command on the second day. So tabulate, and you specify a variable here in the categorical variable, and that variable's frequency distribution is reported in the results window. Now, what is what? First of all, at the very top is the title bar. You can see the word tabulate one. That is the command word itself. Then var list will be specified in this field called categorical variable. Now here var list will of course be just one variable. Remember, I told you var list is not just list. It can be just one variable as well. That is also a list. Then comes all the other parts, prefix, if condition, in range. Those are specified using the second tab here. So we are in the main tab, as you can see. The other three tabs are by, if, in tab, weights tab, and advanced tab. So by prefix, if condition, and in range, these things are specified using the by, if, in tab. Now remember that there are several prefixes, but not all prefixes are applicable with all commands. In this case, the prefix that is applicable is the by prefix. What does the by prefix do? By prefix asks Stata to do this particular thing subject to the values of another variable. So similar like the if condition. So all those things can be specified using the by, if, in tab. Then of course is the weight tab. So if you are working with a survey data set, you may have to specify the weights, and that you can use using the weights tab. And then whatever else is there, in the main window, there are a lot of parts, starting from the subpopulation variable, then all these 5 tick mark boxes, and also the advanced tab. All of these go into the option portion. So this is how the different parts of the Stata command gets translated or gets programmed into this dialog box. Now I'm giving you just showing you this using one dialog box for one particular command. If you check other commands, you will see that you have similar structure in all the dialog boxes. So there will be the command itself at the top of the dialog box in the title bar. Then there will be a space where either you can specify a variable list, or you can specify the name of a file, or if it is a variable creation command, in that case you have to specify the name of the variable, new variable, and some expression, which we have already seen using the generate command and the display dialog box. Then you specify this if condition, in range, prefixes using another tab, weight using another tab, and finally using tabs and other things, you specify the options. All right. So that is how it looks like in the dialog boxes. But what about the commands when we start typing them? Let's see that now. I told you the basic part is the command itself. One example, summarize. So if you just type summarize, once a data set has been already loaded, Stata will calculate the mean, standard deviation, minimum, maximum, and number of observations for all variables in the data set. Because we have just typed summarize, nothing else. Then I told you that another part of the command syntax is the prefix. For example, if quietly is a prefix, what happens if I type quietly? If I type quietly with that colon after it, Stata calculates the statistics, but it does not show you the output. Now, it sometimes is useful. For now, you might think that if I calculate the statistics, why won't I ask Stata to show it? Now, this is slightly advanced, the usage of this. So just now learn that it can be done, but later on you will see the usage. It doesn't make sense try to explain it to you right now. Just that use this as an example that if you use the quietly prefix, then Stata's default behavior of giving the output of the summarize command is modified. Stata does the calculation, but doesn't show anything. Then with summarize, you can specify a variable list. For example, if you just specify one variable, Stata will calculate the statistics for just one variable. If you specify two variables, it will do for those two variables. If you specify 5 variables, it will do for 5 variables. Now, the summarize command does not allow for a file name. However, the use command does. So I'm giving you another example. So if you use my data file, then this my data file will be opened. So I have given you example of command, just the command with a prefix, command with a var list, and command with a file name. Then there can be command with new var equal to expression. Of course, with summarize, it cannot work. It works with generate. For example, we have seen I can create a variable called myvar4, which is equal to myvar1 plus myvar2. So here, new var is myvar4, and equal to expression is this, equal to myvar1 plus myvar2. That is the expression. So this is the example of this command new var equal to x. There was another thing which was using file name. So it can be with the describe command. For example, you can use the describe command. I don't think I have shown you this example, but you can do it. That without even loading a data set, you can ask Stata to describe the variables of that data set if you use the data file name with the using part. So after you load a data set, just typing describe shows you what variables are there, what are their meaning and all that, what are their storage type and all that. But even without loading a data set, if you type it describe using my data file, Stata will do that for a data set which you have not yet loaded. The next part of the command syntax was the if condition. So for example, you can try to summarize myvar1, myvar2 only if some other variable, myvar3, takes values greater than 200. So only for those observations where myvar3 takes values greater than 200, Only for those observations, myvar1 and myvar2 will be summarized. That is, the mean, standard deviation, and minimum and maximum will be calculated for only those observations. That is how the if condition works. And it can be made very complicated, the if condition. You can have condition based on multiple variables. Then we can have the in range. For example, you can just specify that, okay, do this, but for the first 500 observations. So 1/500 is the way Stata understands how to specify first 500 observations. And finally, the option. So with each of these commands, we can specify different options. For example, with summarize command, if we specify the option detail, then not only the mean, standard deviation, minimum and maximum are calculated, but also the median, quartiles, skewness, kurtosis, variance, all these other statistical measures are also calculated. We have seen that with the use command, clear is an option, which basically clears Stata's memory of any previously loaded data set. With the generate command, this we have not seen, but there is an option available called after. The option is after. So here after V5 basically tells Stata to create this myvar4 and locate it in the data set after the variable 5. So there needs to be a variable by the name V5. So the new myvar4 will be created immediately after that. With the describe command, there is an option available which is simple, which does not list the names of the variables and their storage type and blah, blah, blah. What does it do? It simply tells you how many observations are there, how many variables are there. So that is the full command syntax. Okay, means the wait part. Full command syntax of Stata. Prefix, command, var list, or new var, or using file name. So these three parts are mutually exclusive, more or less. If logical condition, in range, sometimes wait if we are working with survey data, and then slash option. Not slash option, sorry, comma option. Now again, where you can learn about more about these commands in the help files in the so let me just show you instead of telling this. Let me just go back to Stata. So let's say you want to learn what is the full command syntax of the summarize command. So if you type help summarize, then the help file comes. And immediately you can see that it has this structure. Summarize, var list, if condition, in range, wait, and options. What are the options? Immediately below this, it specifies, the help file specifies the option. The options are detail, mean only, format, separator, and display. Some display options. Towards the bottom, slightly towards the bottom, it also says by, collect, rolling, stats by. These are the prefixes which are allowed with with this particular command. And it talks about the weights a little bit as well. And if you scroll a bit towards down, then it actually has more detailed explanation of each item. So this way, if you type help for any command, help describe, you can see the command syntax is given. Then the options are given. briefly. Then the options are explained in slightly bit more detail. And there are actually some examples as well towards the bottom here. If you are not satisfied with this, you can actually click on here, which is a new addition with Stata 17. I'm not sure, it may have been there in Stata 16, but I have not seen Stata 16. But it was not there at least up to Stata 14 or Stata 15, that I can assure you. That you can now, if you are not satisfied with this live HTML type help file, you can go to the PDF manual, which has much more extensive help or much more extensive discussion on each of these commands. So you can click this view complete PDF manual entry. If you click on this, the PDF help file opens up. This is the describe describe command, and you can read through this whole thing and learn it in much more details. Now, I have discussed very briefly, in very brief, as much as I could within the short time, the Stata command syntax. I would strongly suggest you go to the user guide, and definitely, if nothing else, actually you should, all of you who wants to learn Stata should read this user guide cover to cover. But that might be postponed maybe a week or two. But for the time being, read this chapter 11 on language syntax as soon as you can. That has much more extensive discussion on this Stata command syntax and also much detailed discussion than I could do here. And it has examples as well for all those parts. Prefix, using var list, what can you specify within var list, what you cannot specify within var list, if how the if condition can be specified, how the in range can be specified, and all that. So definitely read this section, this chapter carefully as soon as you can. All right. So that brings us basically to the end of these 4 sessions. Now I can see there is a question, so let me take these questions now. Okay. The question is, please explain the in range in 1/500. Okay, let me just open Stata itself and show you this. So, summarize. Let me use the command summarize. Summarize wage. If I do this, what is the output? If I do summarize wage, it shows me the mean for all the 526 observations, the mean, the standard deviation, and minimum and maximum. But if I specify summarize wage in 1/10, now this is Stata's way of specifying from the first observation till the 10th observation. So if I press 10 now, what happens? As you can see, now Stata calculates things only for the first 10 observations. So the mean for the first 10 observation is this. This is the standard deviation. Minimum is 3, maximum is 18.18. On the other hand, I can also specify summarize wage in 20/40. That will specify from the 20th observation till the 40th observation. So 21 observations in total. As you can see, Stata now calculates the mean, standard deviation, minimum, and maximum for the 21 observations from the 20th till the 40th. Or I can do it for, let's say, from the 500th observation till the 526th observation. So the last 27 observations. Now this in range must be specified as a contiguous set of observations. You cannot specify some from here, some from there, some from there. This list must be contiguous. So this is how what the in range does. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now one beauty is there, and that is it may be that you do not know what is the last observation in the data set. In that case, how do you specify that from the 500th observation till the last? There is a fantastic thing that Stata allows is summarize weight in 500 or let's say 400 slash. Now you do not know what is the last observation. So you just type L, the small L. Small L stands for the last observation. So that is not 1. So that is not 400 slash 1. That is 400 slash L. Similarly, F stands for the first observation. But in any case, we always know that 1 is the first observation. So I don't see any added advantage of using F for first observation. But definitely L has its usages. When you do not know or you are feeling lazy that you don't want to know yet what is the total number of observations. So in that case, you can use L as shorthand for the last observation. Okay, any other question? Anyone?
Not really, Professor. It seems.
Yeah. All right, then. Thank you for joining these sessions. I hope these were useful for all of you. And whenever you need anything, let me know. No issues. Even if you are not in my class, don't feel hesitant. Okay. If I can help you in any way with data, I shall be glad to do that. And thank you, Ms. Nagpal, for helping me organize these sessions. And
Pleasure is all ours, Professor.
yeah.
Thank you so much for conducting the complete series. It was indeed very, very helpful for each one of us.
Okay, thank you. Neha, if you want, we can sit now if you are still there in the session.
Yes, sir. I'm still here.
So I will send you or just send me a meeting request in MS Teams.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
And just to let me take this opportunity to address my students. Those of you who will be in my tricks class from 14th, just remember to review the 4 sessions before the class and keep an eye open for my emails. And let me know if you have any question later on. So I guess there are 4 messages in chat box, and those are probably good night, thank you messages. Yes. Yep. All right. So see you when I see you. Thank you. Good night.